Hello. This week I thought I'd start a small three-part series on basic cover. And with that in mind, I thought I'd start with a basic hedgerow. So let's have a look at what I'm going to use for bases. Now the first thing is this stuff. Now I'm not going to underplay this. It took a bit of time and effort. But basically, all these are these pieces of MDF. You know, a lot of people ask, and I suppose I used to, what do you do with your leftover MDF? You know, from you get bits on kits, houses, and things like that. Well, I've always kept everything. I use all the little bits really for furniture and rubble and but any good straight bits, I mean, don't get me wrong, they didn't look like this originally. I cut off anything that's, a reasonable chunk of area. I know I got a lot on my Horsa kit. There was no end of spare MDF on that one. And basically, I cut off all these chunks and then I spent yesterday just getting them all into the same shape and cutting them because it's been piling up, and as you know I've got to move soon, so I'm trying to wade through a lot of the stuff and I just can't bring myself to throw it out. So the two things came together and I thought, right, we'll make some edges. So I spent a bit of yesterday just cutting these all to the same size, and then what I've done is I've sanded down the edges and rounded off the corners. You don't really need to do that, but I just do it. It's part of what I do, just so there's no that catches your fingers when you're using them. So I've got myself a nice big stack of MDF bases for any cover that I want to build. So I thought what I'd do first is I'd look at some basic edges. So let me just get set up and then I'll bring you back. Right, so the first ones I'm going to make is using some of this rubberized horsehair. I don't think it is horsehair, it looks more like the stuff that well, I don't know what you describe it as, the cocoa matte stuff. But anyway, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be cutting strips of this and I'm going to stick those straight on there, and that'll give like an instant bush. The thickness is just about right, really. Right, let's cut a strip off. It's great stuff. I mean, I've used this before for when I made the trees. I don't know whether you remember. But it does give an instant hedge look, without much effort. Right. If there's any, these, you get some thicker bits in it, I pull them off. This is naturally dividing down the middle, so I can pull out any bits from the middle, so that's not too bad. Right, so all I'm going to do initially is I've been warming up my glue gun in the background, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to splurge some on here. Obviously you want to work fairly fast because I want to get this before it dries out, and then shove it straight onto it. And straight away that's got a good grip on it. Right, now obviously, you know, if you really wanted it basic, there's nothing wrong with just leaving it like that. But, you know, that's not what I'm aiming for. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to snip away at it and give it a bit of shape. Let me zoom in a bit. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just take a bit of that corner off so it don't look so... Don't throw away these bits, they come in handy for something else. I mean, the idea here is there's no particular pattern I'm going for, it's just being random. You can see that it's starting to get a bit more shape. It looks less like it's just been cut off in a straight line. There we go. I'm reasonably happy with that one. Might cut a little bit more off this edge here. The more random you can make it, the better, because it obviously you want it to look natural. I do like to leave it hanging right up to the edge because it makes it easier, you know, button it up to the next one. If you cut it too far back, then you're going to have gaps in your edges. I mean, you can go to the trouble of making corner pieces, but I find that you don't really need to if you do it like this. It works fine once you've cut the other one to shape. So I'm fairly happy with that one. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to make up a few more of the same one off camera, and then I'll bring you back for the next stage. Right, so I've made up 8 of those now, because that's a, you know, reasonable number to have to make up a, you know, continuous hedge round a field and things. So that's what I've gone for that for. Now, at this stage, I mean, if you wanted to be really basic about it, you could just paint the edges of the wood. I mean, normally you can paint the wood beforehand, but because I know this is going to be a really bushy bush and I don't need to bother about it. But you could leave it like that if you really wanted to. But what I'm going to do with these ones now is I'm going to give these a coat of brown spray paint. Just mist it over really, so it looks more like the woody undergrowth, because we're going to do a next stage on these and I'm going to use some scatter on it. So what I'll do now is I'll take these away, get them sprayed up, and then I'll bring them back and show you what they're looking like then. Right, so I've given these a misting with some brown. I mean, I've actually used oak brown. If I'd got a lighter brown, I would have used it, but it's not really going to matter. It's really for the anything that shows through after we've put the scatter on it. And the scatters that I'm going to try on this one, I haven't used them on my edges before, are some from Geek Gaming. Now I've got a light green leaf cover, and I've got a mid-green leaf colour. Obviously I'm going to be sparing with the light colour because I want that to be like highlights. So the main body of the scatter I'm going to use is this mid-green. Right, so what I do, I'm just going to get one of my manky old trays in, is I'm going to give it a dust of this. It's Fast Tack by Bostik. Now, if I'd got some tacky glue, but I've run out at the moment, I would have just painted that on with a brush, and that would have been just as good. And to be honest, this stuff is devilishly expensive for what it is. I mean, it's such a small can, but it has been really useful on trees. But just a little request to anybody out there that's watching. If you do know of another decent one that gives a fine mist like this one does, drop it in the comments, will you please? Because, like I say, this stuff costs a fortune in comparison to other stuff I use. Right, so all I'm going to do is there we go. Just put that to one side a minute so you can see what I'm doing. And I'll bring my scatter tray in. So, as I said, I'm going to go in with the mid-tone green leaf cover. Give it a loose scattering. You don't need to cover up all the brown. You want some of that showing through to give it that, real look of a hedge. Right. So I'll put on the mid-green. And now I'm just going to add a little bit more sparing, mainly on the top. And the upper sides. You don't want it down at the bottom because the sun won't catch it there. Let's put a bit of light on that so you can see it. So that's what it's looking like. I think that's pretty convincing, really. And it's got that, slightly, wild look of hedge rather than anything too uniform. Because, that's what you're looking for, really. You want it to be like nature. You want it to be natural. Which is why I cut all these shapes and curves out of it, because, a straight edge is going to be a dead giveaway. I'll just sprinkle a little bit more on this end. Now, if you've got any other scatters, the only thing I would say is, because normally I'd have just used some of the really old stuff, the Jarvis stuff that I've had kicking around for ages. But I just thought I'd give this leaf a go. But if you've got some of the Jarvis scatters and the sawdust type, what I would say is, if you can tone it with 3 different colours, it's going to look a lot better. What you don't want is it to look uniform. So, go for your darkest colour first, put the most of that on, and then a little bit lighter, and then for any sunlight bits on the top, the lightest one you've got of all. And that'll give it a lot better look. Right, what I'm going to do now is I'll get the rest of them done, And then finally, I'll give them all a good soak in watered down PVA just to make sure it seals everything in, because I don't want the scatter dropping off on the battle table. Right, back in a minute. Right, as you can see, all complete now, and they're pretty firm after giving them a soak of the PVA, and they're quite substantial edges. I mean, you know, relatively simple to build as you've seen, but the ideal, especially, you know, like during the breakout at Normandy, you could use them in that kind of environment. I mean, they'd even offer significant cover for a tank to drive behind because they're so big. And as you know, as bushes go, it's a fairly dense cover that you're going to get behind that. I mean, you're not even going to see troops behind it, are you? So, right. Oh, one other thing. I don't know if you spotted him, but I've added a little rabbit to that one. I had a hunt round and I found a few of them left. So I thought I'd add that one there as a bit of a tribute to a rabbit I once had. So I did have two rabbits. The other one were black. I didn't think that was quite a natural countryside colour, so it's the grey one that's been immortalised. Anyway, wrap this one up. I hope you found it interesting. I know it's a fairly basic one, so you can, you know, use it and go as far with it as you want. You don't have to, as I say, do all of these stages. You could just leave it as the basic stuff. So anyway, wrapping it up. Hope you found something interesting, and if you have, please consider giving me a thumbs up, and why not subscribe so you can see the next video, because there's going to be a small collection of these short videos, hopefully. And if you do want to see them, it's always worth clicking that bell so you'll get a notification when the next one comes out. Right, I'll see you again soon. Bye.